Everyone, welcome back to a brand new expanded deck profile. Today we're going to talk about another rogue expanded strategy that's either completely hit or completely miss, usually the latter. But we're trying to build around the fun aspect of Kecleon here from Chilling Rain. Very cool artwork on this card as well, with the Chroma Shift ability. This Pokemon is the same type as any basic energy attached to it, so including if it has 2 or more. So what you can do is if your opponent's, let's just say, a Shadow Rider Calyrex, not saying you'll beat it, but if they are theoretically a Shadow Rider Calyrex, you put Dark Energy on and now you hit for weakness. But we can get a little bit better for the weakness, because we're building around this Uxie in this list. If you have Mesprit and Azelf in play, apply weakness for each Pokemon as ×4. So now instead of hitting 90 damage with Kecleon, instead of hitting 180 with Kecleon, you are now hitting 360, effectively KOing just about anything in Expanded. So this is the build for this one. I'm going to have a second list that we're going to talk about today as well. We'll get there. It's a non-Uxie variant. How do you power up the Kecleon? Well, we're going to be using Ho-Oh-EX with its Rebirth ability. You're going to get Ho-Oh and a bunch of energy into the discard pile, and then once during your turn, before you attack, if it is in the discard pile, you may flip a coin. If heads, put this Pokemon onto your bench and attach 3 different types of basic energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. The attack is actually not the worst attack on Earth. 20 plus 20 for each different types of basic energy. If you have 3 on there, it's doing 80. I've won games with it before, so don't sleep on it. You're mainly using it, though, to get Ho-Oh into play and swap it into a Kecleon. So I'm going to skip a little ahead, but what do we do to switch Ho-Oh with Kecleon? We play 2 copies of Ninja Boy. Choose one of your basic Pokemon to play, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, and switch it with that Pokemon. One thing you could consider is playing the new Thornton, and this is personally just up to your own interpretation. I still think Ninja Boy is better in this specific deck, but Thornton, you could potentially discard a Kecleon off of a Battle Compressor and then get that, because Thornton switches a Pokemon in play with a basic Pokemon in your discard pile. So there's definitely some things to consider. If you want to run 1-1, maybe you cut the teammates for Thornton altogether. It's really up to you. To increase our consistency here, since we're using Level Ball and Quick Ball or Search, we're using Jirachi with 90 HP. The Stellar Guidance ability that when you play it from your hand into your bench, you may search your deck for a supporter, reveal it, put it into your hand. Just generally good to increase our consistency. And with the Uxie, it has to have Mesprit and Azelf in play for the weakness to apply as ×4. So obviously you have to play 2 of this Uxie. I love the art on this one, by the way. But we kind of had to look over the expanded pool of cards and decide what the best Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxies are to use with it. Obviously you have to use this Uxie. Sadly, they are not as good as the original Azelf and Mesprit from back in the day. For anyone who remembers both the Downer Material Azelf, a wonderfully good card, the Azelf from Legends Awakened, a absolutely incredible card, not to mention the Uxie from Legends Awakened, but also the Mesprit from Legends Awakened, another just fantastic card. Sadly, we don't have that kind of strength in the expanded format. They've really neutered these Pokemon since their Diamond and Pearl time in the Sun. We do have this Azelf from Forbidden Light, and you're using this because for 1 energy it has Hypnoblast, put the opponent to sleep, can buy you a turn potentially, and for 1 energy it has Psychic Abduction. You can only use it if you go second and on your first turn, shuffle one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attached into their deck. So if your opponent's just building up a big threat and you're kind of stuck with Azelf active for the turn while you build up your board, you can use a Psychic Abduction on your first turn going second and slow your opponent down just a tiny bit, and sometimes that's really all you need to get back in the game, is just slow your opponent down a tiny bit. Some other considerations you could use for Azelf here, if we want to go here. There is this one with 70 HP and a Psi Power attack, could also be pretty good, and then this one has 70 HP, but I would not play because the attack is very bad. This one right here, it's not none of these are like terrible, but I just think is the best for Hypnoblast, potentially buying you a turn. This would probably be my second choice. Another great artwork. I just love these little fairies. We got 1 copy of Mesprit here from Plasma Blast. We'll talk about the other Mesprits in a second, but if you have Uxie and Azelf in play, your Pokemon have no weakness. So, yeah, your opponent can't, like, Jet Punch you, for example, Hammerhead. Those are the first fighting attacks that come to mind, being a, Black and White and Sun and Moon player. But there's some other ones that can hit you for weakness that can just be really troublesome early on. So I just say no, and your opponent can't hit you for weakness, including your Ho-Ohs. So can sometimes save you a little bit. Not the best option in the world, but it's a Mesprit that helps you a little bit, and you're going to need a Mesprit in play anyway. The other Mesprit we have is one copy of Mesprit from Forbidden Light. If you have Azelf in play, your opponent's Pokemon in play have no resistance. So one of the downsides with playing a bunch of energy and attaching them to Kecleon is that if you knock out something like Kecleon, your opponent might promote a Pokemon that has a resistance to one of the energy types attached, and now you're doing minus 20 damage. Mesprit fixes this. Some other Mesprits we could potentially use here. We have, this was the first contact. If you do start a Psychic Energy, there's only one on this list, so that's why I don't play it. Search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon. If you played a more Psychic heavy list, this would definitely be the one to go for. And then there's this one, which is literally the exact same as the Plasma Blast one. I just don't have it on PTCGO. It's got 10 more HP, so it is better, so run it if you want. I just don't have it on PTCGO. Great artwork on this one. 3 copies of Juniper. We need to draw cards. Sadly, we do need to use Ninja Boy a lot, but Juniper is going to be our staple draw to get our Ho-Ohs down early, get our energies down so we can start pulling off the combo. 2 copies of Ninja Boy, as previously stated. Again, you could put Thornton in here as well. You could go 1-1 split, you could go 2-1 and just cut the Teammates. What does Teammates do? If one of your Pokemon was knocked out, search it for 2 cards. A lot of times, you're only going to be able to get this combo off like 2 times per game. So just having Teammates to help you set up the next combo and then sit back for a turn is pretty good. 4 copies of Battle Compressor. Search your deck for 3 cards and discard them. Get your Ho-Ohs and your energies into the discard pile. With some discard synergy, you can also discard Pokemon and get them back with Rescue Stretcher and Carrier. 4 copies of Level Ball. Searches your Pokemon with 90 HP or less, so all of the Pixies, your Kecleon, and your Jirachi. 4 copies of Quick Ball. Searches everything in the deck, which is very good, obviously. Discard a card from your hand. Search your deck for a basic. 4 copies of VS Seeker. Put a support card from your discard pile into your hand, so you can discard something like a Juniper or a Ninja Boy and use it off of the first Seeker. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher. Put a Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck, or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. Or put one from your discard pile into your hand, or shuffle 3 into your deck. It's good for getting back Pokemon. The reason we play the 1-1 split with Rescue Carrier is that this puts up to 2 Pokemon each with 90 HP or less from your discard pile into your hand. So if you have an extra Battle Compressor in your first hand, and you're going to end up Junipering the hand away anyway, you can Battle Compressor for 2 Pixies and Rescue Carrier them into your hand and then drop them onto your bench. 2 copies of Scoop Up Net. If you start Ho-Oh or Jirachi, you don't want them to stay in play, so you want to scoop them up so you can use their abilities. So that's why we play 2 Scoop Up Net. You put up one of your Pokemon that is on VRGX into your hand. Discard all attached cards. 2 copies of Float Stone to give your Pokemon fair treat. Usually going to set up a pivot on one of the Pixies, especially one that your opponent doesn't want to necessarily target. So that's always good. 1 copy of Stealthy Hood, prevent all effects of your opponent's abilities down to the Pokemon's cards attached to. So you want to prevent your opponent from shutting off Uxie with something like a Garbotoxin. When I made this deck, it was very popular to play Dragapult VMAX, so shutting off Garbotoxin, shutting off this Uxie was pretty good. Just 1 copy usually is enough to shore that up enough where you're either able to win fast enough, or, I mean, sometimes the matchups are just bad enough anyway where you just can't win, but we ignore those matchups, right? This is a gimmick deck after all. 1 copy of Super Effective Glasses. This is a brand new card, or I guess 3 months old, but still pretty brand new for this deck. When applying weakness, apply it as ×3. Now you do have to be careful because this does overwrite your Uxie, but if you can't get the Uxie combo in play in time for your attack, sometimes you just need to hit 270, and this is a quick way to do that with Kecleon. So this is a way to do it with Kecleon. You can just hit a quick 270 damage, hopefully take a knockout. Sometimes you don't need that full 360, and this can be good in those specific matchups. 2 copies of Chaotic Swell here. We need to keep Path of the Peak and Silent Lab out of play indefinitely. We cannot have them coming into play, so 2 copies is absolutely necessary. And then we have our energy lineup with 2 Dark to hit Shadow Riders and Mimigars for weakness, 2 Fairy to hit Arceus Dialga Palkia, Giratina Garchomp, and the Guzzlord for weakness. We have 2 copies of Fighting to hit Arceus V-Star, Greninja Zoroark, and the like for weakness. 2 copies of Fire to hit all the Metal Pokemon. Not very playable, but first comes to mind is like Corviknight, but also like Eggrow and stuff if you're somehow able to hit into them. Stealthy Hood does give you a way to hit through the Vileplume, by the way, if they don't have item lockout. 2 copies of Water to hit all the Fire Pokemon. that are always in the expanded ladder. Realistically, if you wanted to like tech for a tournament, I would never take this deck to a tournament, but if you did, you'd maybe go one of the other energies instead of water, but there's a lot of fire decks on ladder. One copy of Grass. This hits, what, Colossal for weakness, if you see that around. Not too many other things, but it's worth having every type of energy. One copy of Lightning Energy. Oh yeah, because if you're not hitting weakness in the deck, by the way, it's absolutely horrible, so it's worth having these energies. One copy of Lightning. This allows you to hit weakness on, like, Palkia. May increase this to 2, honestly. This would definitely be a 1 over the water energy if you want to. There's Palkia, there's, like, you know, sometimes you see Flying Pikachu on ladder, stuff like that. One copy of Metal hits, like, Ice Riders and Curums for weakness, if you see those. There's a few other things, but that's the main crust of it. Some fairy types that are now psychic types, so like Sylveon VMAX, if you see that, used to be a pretty decent deck. One copy of Psychic. This hits you know, Mewtwo Mews and Machamp and Urshifus and stuff like that for weakness. So this is the list right here, building off of the Uxie with its secret territory. The next list we're going to talk about is building off of super effective glasses almost entirely, but it's a little bit different, so we're going to talk about it. 3 copies of Kecleon. Once again, we did go down on this because you need the, you only really need 3 in this variant specifically. 3 copies of Ho-Oh with its Rebirth ability, still doing the same thing it always does to get energy into play. 2 copies of Diancie in here. This is one of my new things I'm testing. It's because you can put this out and it just prevents your opponent from gusting your Crobats, your Dedenes, your Kecleons, your Ho-Ohs on the bench if you just need to leave them to sit a turn. 2 copies make sure that if your opponent plays something like an escape rope, you can you know, set up a second one and potentially set up a wall for that, though it's often hard to do with only 2 copies in the deck. You could increase this potentially. 1 copy of, why did the Crobat teleport over there? 1 copy of Crobat with this Dark Asset. When you play it from your hand into your bench, draw until you have 6. So without the Uxie in the deck, without the Uxie AMU combo, you're able to run a lot more Pokemon that are based around just drawing you cards and getting that Ninja Boy combo set up. This is one of them. The other one is the Dene with this Day change. When you play it from your hand onto your bench, discard your hand, draw 6. You can't use more than 1 Day change per turn, so it's probably the most powerful draw Pokemon in this regard. 1 copy of Tapu Lele. We put this over Jirachi because we don't play Level Ball anymore, so this is more searchable. It has the same ability, essentially, allowing you to search a supporter when you play it from your hand onto your bench. 1 copy of Zigzagoon. Since this deck is hitting around the 270 number that is on the Kecleon with the ×3, you need to sometimes boost that to 280 for things like Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. Can't really do that with traditional means like a Muscle Band because, well, guess what? Super Effective Glasses is your tool already, so Galarian Zigzagoon is definitely good in that regard. One thing you could consider with your energy support here is something like a Diancie Prism Star. Let's just bring that up so we can all see it, show it to the class. A little bit of show and tell here, if it's deciding to. TCG player, no? Doesn't want to load? Cool. Diancie Prism Star boosts your fighting Pokemon's attacks by 20 more as long as it's on the bench. If you have a fighting energy attached to Kecleon, that will pay for that, so you just have to make sure you're always getting back fighting energy with your Ho-Ohs. So that could be something you consider as well. To boost your damage, Zigzagoon is usable with our Scoop Up Net, so I think that's pretty good. Just a one-time use to get that 280 number, and a 2-time with a Scoop Up Net. 1 copy of Radiant Greninja with concealed cards. When you discard an energy from your hand, you may draw 2. It's great for getting energy in the discard pile for Ho-Oh, and just generally churning through your deck since you have to play like more than 10 energy. You play, what, 14 this list, yeah? 3 copies of Juniper, discard your hand, draw 7. Great for drawing again. 2 copies of Ninja Boy, again, consider Thornton. Just allows you to switch a basic Pokemon and play for 1 in your deck. Thornton does basic Pokemon and play for 1 in your discard. Both are good options. This list would primarily be the one I'd probably do Thornton for because there's only 3 copies of Kecleon, so keep that in mind. If you do decide to switch it, I still just think Ninja Boy is particularly better here. 4 copies of Battle Compressor check for up to 3 cards and discard them. Shuffle your deck afterward. Used to get all these Ho-Ohs in the discard pile. You can get Dedenes and Crobats to combo off of Rescue Stretcher. You know, Zigzagoon or Greninja to do the same. Mainly you're just doing it to get the energies and the Ho-Ohs down. Sometimes the supporters too for Burst Seeker 4 copies of Quick Ball, discard a card from your hand, search deck for a basic. Same as usual, searches everything in the deck. Ultra Ball, 4 copies of that, discard 2 cards from your hand, search deck for any Pokemon. Worse than Quick Ball in this deck, but it is just generally good to search anything. Could potentially run an Execute in here to help your discard consistency a little bit better. It's really up to you. The Execute from Plasma Freeze has the Propagate ability, which when you discard it from your, when it's in your discard pile at any time, you can put this Pokemon back into your hand as many times as you'd like per turn. 1 copy of Scoop Up Net picks up your Pokemon in play. This list can only play 1, potentially play 2, it's really up to you. Potentially even play Dowsing Machine to reuse it. 4 copies of Verse Seeker, put a supporter card from your pile into your hand. Allows you to tech these supporters back. Allows you to battle compressor them and use them later. 4 copies is pretty good. 1 copy of Computer Search, discard 2 from your hand, search deck for a card, put it into your hand. Great for just setting the combo up. Dowsing Machine could definitely be argued in here, as well as Scoop Up Cyclone to pick up the Dedenne, Crobat, and Lele. Dowsing Machine would allow you to reuse some of these harder to use cards. I just think Computer Search is needed because you want to set up the combo. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher, put a Pokemon from your pile into your hand or shuffle 3 from your pile into your deck. Always good, and we split that with Carrier once again. Put up 2 Pokemon each with 90 HP or less from your pile into your hand. The reason we play Carrier in this, despite playing less 90 HP Pokemon, is because we want to get the Diancie and reuse those pretty effectively, as well as Kecleon. 4 copies of Super Effective Glasses, again, applies your weaknesses times 3. This is the build round with this deck, so 4 copies seems appropriate. 2 copies of Float Stone. Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat, so allowing you to set up a pivot a lot of times on like maybe a Lele or a Greninja. 2 copies of Chaotic Swell. Whenever your opponent plays a Stadium card, discard that one, and then discard Chaotic Swell. Keeps you to Silent Labs and Path to Peak out of play as usual. And the energy lineup is the same. Potentially you could switch around the energy lineup to build more around beating tag teams. Primarily, I'd say you maybe want to increase the lightning count and decrease, maybe even cut the metal altogether. So it's really up to you. There's a lot you can do with this list based on how you like it. None of my lists are ideal, obviously. They're just built from my experience. In fact, I didn't even put an A-spec in this one just because I didn't think it was needed. So it's really up to you what you want to do with this one. I just realized I didn't have an A-spec, and I'm like, huh. Well, you know, the deck ran without an A-spec. These are pretty gimmicky decks. You know, try them on the ladder, see if you have some fun. They're not meant to win you any tournaments. Don't take them to a tournament. Thank you all for watching this expanded deck profile. Check out my other expanded deck profiles, or if you like tabletop, I do that as well, and check those out. Thank you all so much for watching.